Hey, it's Katie, and welcome back to my booktube channel. So even though it's technically not summer yet, it's been really hot where I live. It's been in the 80s and 90s for the past week or so. So it's kind of inspired me to do a summer vibes recommendations for you guys. And for me, summer doesn't really, it's not a distinct vibe for me, not as much as spring or fall. I feel like those have very distinct vibes for me, but summer is kind of iffy, so these are a little all over the place. We have some fantasies and then some romance and contemporary, so hopefully there's something for everybody, but I am very excited to recommend these to you guys. There's a couple things I think of when it comes to summer reads. If a book takes place in a hot or really warm environment, obviously that kind of reminds me of summer, so that kind of fits. I also tend to go for the more fun reads, if there's fun adventures or if the characters are really vibrant and fun and not intense, but there's a certain type of character that kind of reminds me of summer. And then also if the fantasy book is there's a certain type of intensity that I feel reminds me of summer. It's intense without being super dark, because in the fall I tend to go for the spookier, darker tones, but in the summer it's just kind of intense without being too dark. I don't know if any of that made sense, but hopefully it will make more sense as I recommend these books to you guys. So let's just jump into it. So the very first book that I think of when I think of summer is Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. I mean, there's ice cream on the cover, and I read it last summer, so maybe that's another reason it reminds me of summer. But this book is about Lena, who her mother just passed away, and her mom's last dying wish was for her to go to Italy and spend the summer there with her dad, I think. And when she ends up in Italy, she's given a journal that used to belong to her mom. And so she's reading this journal as she's experiencing the same things in Italy that her mom was talking about in the journal. And it's just really cool because Jenna Evans Welch includes the journal entries in the story as well. So you get a different form of media within the book, which is really fun. And the writing is so charming. It's so sweet. And you obviously get to go on so many amazing adventures with Lena, and it's just so fun. It's such a perfect summer read because there's all these adventures. It makes you want to travel. I mean, the ice cream on the cover definitely makes you want ice cream, and it's just absolutely perfect. That's really all I can say, and I will probably reread this at some point this summer. The next one is one that I actually don't have with me, but this is another one that I have read recently, and I really, really loved it, and that was Well Met by Jen DeLuca. And all you really need to know about this one is that our main character moved back home to help take care of her niece, and part of that is having to volunteer at this Renaissance fair during the summer, and when she gets there, she ends up kind of butting heads with one of the teachers who also puts on the Renaissance fair, and it's just such a fun setting. I've never read a book about a Renaissance fair until this one, and I fell in love with the setting. These characters are some of my favorite characters I've ever read. They're so fun. They honestly just feel like friends, because there's also a companion novel called Well Played, and I read that one very soon after I read Well Met, and reading it again, it just felt like catching up with old friends, if that makes sense. They're just such fun characters. They're relatable, they're charming, they're lovable. It's everything you could ever want in rom-com characters you get from this book. And I loved Jen DeLuca's writing. There's also a lot of chemistry between the main characters. It's just, I can't say enough great things about it. But because it does take place during a Renaissance fair during the summer, it definitely gives me those summer vibes. If you've watched any of my videos before, you've probably seen this next one coming, and that is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is one of my favorite series, and it definitely gives me summer vibes. It's very carnival-esque, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, Caraval already sounds like carnival, but it's just the perfect carnival vibes, which obviously represents summer to me, and There's so many great adventures in here, and the characters just like jump off the page. It's everything I want in a summer read. And if you haven't heard me talk about this one before, this follows Scarlett and Tella, who are sisters that live on this island with their dad. And they don't really have a good relationship with their dad, but on this island, all I've ever dreamed about is getting a ticket to go see Caraval, which is this like once-in-a-lifetime experience where the people who attend Caraval get to participate in the experience and the game itself. And Scarlett accepts the fact that she's never going to be able to see Caraval because her father has just arranged a marriage for her. But all of a sudden, invitations arrive, and Tella ends up working with this stranger to whisk Scarlett off to Caraval. But as soon as they get there, Tella goes missing, and it turns out that this year's Caraval revolves around Tella. And so the participants in the game have to follow all these clues, and the first person to track Tella down wins the whole game. My favorite part about this book is that there's such a fine line between fantasy and reality. With this game, you have people who are actors in the game, like playing a part, and you also have other people who are going to play the game, and so you don't know who's an actor and who's not, and you don't know who to trust, and you're getting all these clues, and it's just such a fun mystery and adventure, and you're trying to figure it out right along with the characters, and it's just so fun, and I highly recommend reading this one if you haven't already. Up next, we have Even If the Sky Falls by Mia Garcia, and before I even tell you what it's about, I feel like just looking at this gorgeous cover, you can tell that it screams summer vibes. This follows Julie, who feels like she needs an escape from home, so she goes on this mission trip to New Orleans, but on this trip, she feels more trapped than ever, so she decides to run away and join the Mardi Gras celebrations. And while she's there, she bumps into Miles, and they decide to not really tell each other anything about their past, and they make up fake names, and all they want to do is kind of escape from their lives and have a lot of fun at Mardi Gras. So they spend the next 24 hours going on all these adventures throughout New Orleans, and it's so cute. And I honestly was worried when I first picked this up because it only takes place over 24 hours, so I thought it would be a really rushed, like, romance, but I ended up not thinking that was the case. I really enjoyed the romance, and I've always wanted to travel to New Orleans, so if that's a place you've always wanted to go, I think this is the perfect book for you because there's so many things they experience, and it just makes me want to travel there even more, so I highly recommend that. And also, even though it takes place during Mardi Gras, which is usually, I think, in March or sometime in the spring, just the whole vibe of the adventure and the weather and their relationship, everything about it just screams fun and it screams summer to me. So I definitely think this would be a good one to pick up. This next one is a very popular series, so you've probably already heard about it, but just in case, we have An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir, and I've actually only read this first one, so I'm not sure how the rest of the series is, but I've heard amazing things. But this book is about this martial empire where defiance is met with death, and Laya's family never challenges the empire because, you know, they don't want to deal with all that. But one day, Laya's brother is arrested for treason, and she ends up going to meet with this rebel group, I think. Yeah, she ends up meeting with these rebels, and they promise to help rescue her brother if she will go sneak into the military academy and spy for them. So she ends up going there pretending to be like a maid or a servant, and while she's there, she bumps into Elias, who is the military academy's best soldier, but also secretly their most unwilling, and they end up realizing that their fates are kind of entwined, and the fate of the empire kind of rests on their shoulders. So it's definitely a very intense fantasy, and the world is so amazing. I love the world building. The characters are awesome. And I feel like I just have a soft spot for this book. It's one of the first, like, really great fantasies I read, and it's one of the first books that had multiple perspectives. And I don't know, I just really, really love it. And I'm not quite sure why it screams summer to me, other than the fact that it's like this intense fantasy. I feel like it takes place in a hot environment, but I honestly don't really remember. It's been almost a year since I read it. Honestly, the main reason I feel like this screams summer to me is because I read it in the summer, so maybe that's more of a me thing. But I still think the summer would be the perfect time to pick this up. It's not a super dark fantasy. I mean, it does have some more serious, intense tones to it, but it's not dark, so it doesn't really remind me of fall or winter, so I feel like it would be good to read in the summer. This next one is a super cute romance, and sadly I don't own a copy, but I fell in love with it, and this one is Simmered Down by Sarah Smith. All you really need to know about this book is that it's about dueling food trucks in Hawaii, and we have our main character who is in this food truck business, and she found basically like the most coveted spot on the island, and so she goes to show up for work one day and finds this new food truck in her spot. And so obviously she goes up to that owner and she's not happy, and they get off on the wrong foot, and they decide to compete in this food festival, and whoever wins the festival gets to keep the spot. So it's definitely a very interesting romance. I love that it's about like food trucks and a festival, so it has that going for it, but also the characters are like amazing. There's a touch of like some more emotional, like meaningful parts, but there's also a lot of chemistry and banter. It's definitely an enemies to lovers, and they definitely have a good amount of chemistry, and there is a little bit of spice in this book, which I appreciated. And also it takes place in Hawaii, so I feel like that's the perfect summer read. Last but not least, we have Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller, and this book is a nautical fantasy. It involves pirates, and all of that definitely reminds me of summer. But this book follows Alosa, who is a pirate and actually, obviously, the daughter of the Pirate King. But her dad sends her on this mission to track down an ancient map, and in order to do that, she purposely gets captured by enemy pirates, which is such a badass move. And her whole plan is to end up on their ship so that while they're sleeping, she can sneak out and search for the map on their ship. And I just love the level of confidence that she has. She's such a cool heroine, and she was so fun to read about. I loved the setting. This was my first nautical read, and it did not disappoint. If you're looking for something that takes place on the water, I highly recommend this one. Trisha Levenseller's writing is absolutely amazing. She's quickly becoming one of my favorite authors, and I can't say enough great things about her writing. And I also loved all of the characters in this book. Because they're pirates, they are just so bold and kind of crass, but in like a great way. It's just everything you think of when you would think of a pirate is true with these characters. They stand out, they're bold, they're fun, there's so much banter, and I love everything about this book, so this is your sign to pick this one up as well. Alright, so hopefully you guys found a new book to read this summer. I really hope you enjoyed all these recommendations. If you did, please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and if you do subscribe, please click the notification bell so you know when I upload next. But thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait to see you in my next video.